Welcome to InfoStream, your daily current. Unsure what to listen to? Turn to us for today's headlines. Stay informed. Trump advocates for Gaza peace talks. Negotiations initiated in Egypt. Trump discusses Caucasus peace route. The undertaking is complex. France faces political crisis. Prime Minister resigns amid turmoil. Tanzania abduction raises election concerns. Social media crackdown intensifies. Greta Thunberg deported after Gaza attempt. Activists report mistreatment during detention. Eswatini accepts deportees amidst controversy. Bangladesh election Tarique Rahman returns. Australia and PNG strengthen security pact. Sheinbaum's popularity faces challenges. UK political and economic situation remains complex. Trump continues shutdown negotiations stall. Federal judge restricts National Guard deployments. Trump urges Gaza peace talks as negotiations begin in Egypt. Amidst ongoing conflict in Gaza, key negotiations for a potential ceasefire and hostage release have commenced in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, involving delegations from Israel and Hamas. Donald Trump remains a central figure, urging both sides to proceed swiftly, stating that a deal is very good and that Hamas would face complete obliteration if it insisted on maintaining power in Gaza. Trump's plan, a 20-point framework, remains the core of discussions, focusing on a 72-hour hostage release window following a deal, with an initial estimate of 48 Israeli hostages held in Gaza, though only 20 are believed to be alive. The negotiations are complicated by deep-seated mistrust and disagreements. Israel's stated goal is the complete disarmament of Hamas, a condition that Hamas has resisted, prioritizing the establishment of a Palestinian state. The proposed withdrawal map, initially excluding nearly 900,000 Palestinians from returning to their homes, including Rafah, Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia, and parts of Gaza City and Khan Yunis, has been rejected by Hamas previously. Meanwhile, intense fighting continues in Gaza, with the Hamas-run health ministry reporting 65 deaths in the 24 hours leading up to midday, and Israeli forces conducting airstrikes and tank fire, destroying residential buildings in Gaza City. International journalists remain barred from independent reporting, hindering verification of claims from either side. Adding another layer of complexity, 3 Israeli anti-war activists, including a conscious objector, were arrested for attempting to breach the Gaza border, highlighting the ongoing resistance to the conflict within Israel. The activists' actions underscore the deep divisions within Israeli society regarding the war's conduct and its impact on Gaza. Despite the challenges, the talks represent a critical juncture in the conflict. The United Nations has recently concluded that Israel has committed genocide against Palestinians in Gaza, further intensifying the pressure for a resolution. The success of these negotiations hinges on overcoming significant obstacles and building trust between the parties, a task that appears increasingly difficult given the scale of the devastation and the entrenched positions of both sides. The U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, emphasized the need to halt bombing to facilitate a hostage release, while Trump reiterated the potential for a very good deal, if all parties are willing to move forward. THDDS Trump's Caucasus peace route, a complex undertaking, a dilapidated Soviet railway station, and a small stretch of track in southern Armenia serve as the focal point of a proposed peace route, spearheaded by former U.S. President Donald Trump. Dubbed the Crossroads of Peace, or TRIP, the initiative aims to facilitate connectivity between Azerbaijan and its exclave of Nakhchivan through Armenia, involving a 43-kilometer route and promises of railway, motorway, and pipeline construction. However, the project faces significant challenges, including political hurdles, resistance from Russia and Iran, and a lack of concrete details regarding its implementation. The proposal stems from a conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan over the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region, which Azerbaijan recaptured in 2023 following the displacement of the Armenian population. The Zangezur Corridor, also known as the Corridor, demands a portion of Armenia's Syunik region to connect Azerbaijan, fueling tensions and border clashes. Trump's intervention, involving a meeting with Azerbaijani and Armenian leaders, was seen as a resolution to this deadlock. Despite the agreement, the document remains vague on timelines and specific construction plans. Russia, seeking to re-establish influence in the region, has rejected a proposal for its FSB border troops to guard the road, but continues to patrol the Armenia-Iran border, where the road is planned. Iranian companies are constructing a bridge across the Aras River, separating Iran and Armenia, while Russian patrol vehicles have been observed near the border. The project's potential benefits include increased trade and investment for Armenia, which has been economically stagnant for decades. However, concerns remain about the potential for further conflict and the complex geopolitical dynamics involving the US, Russia, and Iran. Iran's supreme leader has threatened repercussions against the project, while the Iranian government has adopted a more cautious approach. Armenia insists the project does not pose a threat to its interests and expects new investment in previously abandoned areas. The future of the trip hinges on navigating these competing interests and overcoming the considerable obstacles to its realization. French political crisis deepens with Prime Minister's resignation. France is grappling with a deepening political crisis following the abrupt resignation of Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu just 26 days into his tenure. The resignation, attributed to the inability to secure parliamentary support for his cabinet, highlights the country's persistent political instability following snap parliamentary elections in July 2024. These elections resulted in a hung parliament, characterized by deeply divided ideological factions unwilling to compromise. Lecornu's departure follows the collapse of the previous government led by François Bayrou, which was voted down after rejecting Bayrou's austerity budget aimed at reducing the country's significant deficit, currently at 5.8% of GDP, and national debt, which stands at 114% of its GDP. This debt places France third in the Eurozone, behind Greece and Italy. The situation has been further complicated by calls for early elections, with Marine Le Pen of the National Rally Party arguing that the political deadlock is unacceptable and urging President Emmanuel Macron to resign. Macron now faces three primary options: appointing a new prime minister, dissolving the National Assembly, and holding fresh elections, or stepping down himself, a scenario he has repeatedly stated he will avoid until 2027. Lecornu's resignation was marked by criticism of political factions, partisan appetites, highlighting the difficulty in achieving compromise. He lamented the unwillingness of parties to adopt any programs in their entirety. The instability has created a challenging environment for governance, with previous attempts at forming a government also failing due to parliamentary opposition. The stock market reacted negatively to the news, reflecting the uncertainty surrounding France's political future. The ongoing divisions and the inability to forge a stable government underscore the significant challenges facing France as it navigates its political landscape. The situation remains fluid, with Macron's next move crucial in determining the country's path forward. Tanzanian ex-ambassador Abduction sparks concerns amid elections. Humphrey Polepole, a former Tanzanian ambassador and outspoken government critic, was abducted from his home in Dar es Salaam early Monday, according to his family. The incident involved a broken door, severed electrical wires, and significant blood spatter, as reported by his brother, Godfrey Polepole. This abduction has heightened concerns given the upcoming general elections on October 29th and a reportedly tense political environment. Police Chief Juman Muliro expressed skepticism regarding the reported attack, questioning Polepole's whereabouts, noting his frequent claims of being abroad. He stated, "So how could this happen at his home in Tanzania?" The National Police spokesperson, David Massim, confirmed they were investigating the reports circulating online and were awaiting Polepole's response to pending summons related to multiple allegations he made following his resignation in July. Polepole resigned after publicly criticizing the government's alleged disrespect for justice, the rule of law, and constitutional principles. Subsequently, his diplomatic status was formally revoked by President Samia Suluhu Hassan. Since then, he has made various online allegations against government institutions and officials, including claims of armed individuals harassing his family and twice raiding his residence. The police have opened a file against Polepole, suggesting his allegations could constitute criminal offenses. He's been directed to report to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI, to assist in the investigation. The abduction occurs amidst a politically charged atmosphere, with the main opposition party, Chadema, banned from participating in the elections, and its leader Tundu Lissu detained since April. ACT Wazalendo candidate Luhaga Mapina has also been disqualified. Recent months have seen a rise in abductions targeting anti-government voices and opposition figures. President Samia Suluhu Hassan, seeking a second term, has faced criticism for increased repression, including a crackdown on political parties and civil society. The investigation into Polepole's abduction is ongoing, and its timing is particularly sensitive given the upcoming elections and the broader context of political tensions within Tanzania. Tanzania's social media crackdown amidst election tensions. Tanzania's government has issued a stark warning against the use of social media following the viral circulation of a video purportedly featuring a military officer, identified as Kaptesha, calling for military intervention and criticizing the government's alleged corruption, rights violations, and political interference. The individual, claiming affiliation with the Air Force, urged the military chief to take action and encouraged Tanzanians to demand their rights through demonstrations, suggesting security forces were complicit. This occurred as Tanzania prepares for general elections amidst a heightened, tense environment. The military has responded by denying the officer's legitimacy, stating the individual is likely a former member or someone falsely claiming military affiliation. Military spokesman Col. Bernard Masala Munga emphasized the TPDF's commitment to upholding constitutional duties with integrity and professionalism. The police have issued a broader warning against the dissemination of criminal and inflammatory information on social media, vowing to arrest those responsible. The viral video has been widely shared by opposition activists, who interpret it as a sign of military solidarity. President Samia Suluhu Hassan, seeking to maintain her position under the CCM party, is facing upcoming elections. The main opposition party, Chadema, has been banned from participating, and its leader Tundu Lissu is detained on treason charges. Human rights groups argue these charges are politically motivated. Recent months have seen increased government control over media, public gatherings, and opposition activities, raising serious concerns about the fairness of the upcoming 29th October elections. Civil society groups, journalists, and political observers express worries about potential irregularities. The government's actions reflect a strategy to suppress dissent and maintain control in the lead-up to the election, utilizing social media restrictions as a key component. The situation underscores a delicate balance between national security and democratic freedoms within Tanzania. Greta Thunberg deported following Gaza Flotilla interception. Greta Thunberg and 170 foreign activists, including members of the Global Sumud Flotilla, GSF, have been deported following Israel's interception of their Gaza-bound aid flotilla. The incident unfolded after the flotilla attempted to breach Israel's naval blockade of Gaza, leading to the immediate detention of the activists. Within the preceding 24 hours, Israel's foreign ministry facilitated the deportation of these individuals to various countries, including Greece and Slovakia. The operation involved the relocation of 171 activists, representing a diverse range of nationalities, encompassing citizens of Greece, Slovakia, France, Italy, Britain, and the United States. Images circulated showing Thunberg being greeted at Athens airport by a supportive crowd, some of whom were waving Palestinian flags signifying solidarity with the flotilla's mission. Prior to their deportation, the activists' stated objective was to break the illegal siege on Gaza by sea, open a humanitarian corridor, and end the ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people. They argued that the interceptions constituted violations of international maritime and humanitarian law. Israel, however, maintained that it was enforcing a legal blockade and dismissed the flotilla as a PR stunt. Israeli authorities vehemently denied allegations of mistreatment and the denial of basic rights experienced by the activists during their detention. They asserted that the actions were entirely lawful and justified. The foreign ministry confirmed that a total of 341 activists had been deported, representing a portion of the over 470 individuals involved in the GSF flotilla. The situation highlights ongoing tensions surrounding Israel's blockade of Gaza and the international efforts to circumvent it through humanitarian aid initiatives. Flotilla activists report mistreatment during Israeli detention. Multiple reports from activists detained during the Global Sumud Flotilla's attempt to reach Gaza detail allegations of mistreatment and humiliation while in Israeli custody, fueling ongoing disputes over the incident. Activists, including Italian Lorenzo D'Agostino, described conditions involving forced kneeling before Israeli flags, prolonged periods in cold temperatures with minimal clothing, and the confiscation of personal belongings. D'Agostino's account highlighted a perceived strategy of cruelty, influenced by the nationality of detainees, with activists from allied countries allegedly receiving harsher treatment than those from nations not aligned with Israel. The claims have been vehemently denied by Israel's foreign ministry, which asserts that all legal rights of the participants were fully upheld, and that the allegations constitute a PR stunt. However, accounts from several activists corroborate the concerns. Greta Thunberg, a prominent participant, similarly reported being subjected to similar indignities, including being forced to kneel before an Israeli flag and surrounded by flags while in custody. Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir reportedly visited the detained activists, labeling them terrorists and supporters of the killers, a visit described by D'Agostino as deliberately cruel, with his hands bound tightly during the encounter. Ben-Gvir subsequently criticized Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's decision to deport the activists, advocating for their continued detention. Following their deportation, activists continue to report distressing experiences, including being forced to watch graphic images of Hamas October 7 attacks and experiencing severe deprivation of food. Several activists describe being subjected to intimidation tactics, including being threatened with armed personnel and attack dogs. The accounts consistently portray a situation of heightened tension and fear. The Adala Legal Center, representing the activists, has characterized the detention experience as a series of violations. Numerous activists reported being threatened with violence and subjected to aggressive interrogation tactics. Despite Israel's denials, the persistent reports of mistreatment continue to raise serious questions regarding the conduct of Israeli authorities during the detention of the global Summit Flotilla participants and the legal implications of the incident. Eswatini accepts latest deportees amidst controversy. Despite ongoing legal challenges and widespread criticism, the Eswatini government has accepted a group of 10 deportees from the United States, marking the second such shipment under a controversial agreement. The agreement, valued at $5.1 million from the U.S., aims to bolster Eswatini's border and migration management capabilities. The initial deal, involving 5 deportees from Jamaica, Cuba, Laos, Vietnam, and Yemen, has faced strong opposition from civil society groups and legal representatives. The Jamaican deportee has been repatriated, and 2 others are expected to follow soon. The U.S. administration, under the Trump administration, had previously described these individuals as depraved monsters, fueling the controversy. A U.S. federal charge ruled that the prosecution against Salvadoran man Kilmar Embrego Garcia, accused of human smuggling, could be vindictive, pending further evidence. Garcia was mistakenly deported to El Salvador and then detained in the U.S. Legal challenges have centered on the government's decision to accept the deportees without parliamentary consent, arguing it constitutes executive overreach and violates Eswatini's constitution. Activists staged protests outside the U.S. Embassy during the initial arrivals. Human Rights Watch has reviewed the agreement, highlighting the secretive nature of the deal and its implications for democratic regression in a country with a long-standing absolute monarchy. The agreement has raised concerns among neighboring South Africa regarding potential cross-border movement. The government maintains it acted within its powers and that the Constitution allows for such agreements. Despite these assurances, concerns persist about the lack of transparency and the potential impact on Eswatini's democratic processes. The government is holding the deportees in a secure, isolated facility while arrangements for their return to their countries of origin are made. The situation continues to be closely monitored by legal groups and human rights organizations. Bangladesh election BMP's Tarique Rahman returns to lead potential victory. The upcoming February elections in Bangladesh are dominated by the return of exiled BMP leader Tarique Rahman, signaling a potential shift in power. Following months of speculation, Rahman announced his imminent return from London, where he has resided since 2008, citing the time has come for his participation. The BMP, now considered the frontrunner, anticipates a comfortable victory, largely due to the Awami League's ban from political activity, pending the trial of its leaders. The elections follow a 2024 uprising that ousted 3-time Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her Awami League, resulting in approximately 400 deaths, according to UN investigators. Hasina, currently on trial in absentia for crimes against humanity, has sought refuge in India, creating a sensitive diplomatic relationship between the two nations. India's support for the Awami League, particularly during previous elections, remains a point of contention. Tarique Rahman is expected to assume the role of Prime Minister if the BNP wins, despite previous convictions cleared after Hasina's ouster. His mother, Khalida Zia 80, is incapacitated and unlikely to play a role in the campaign. The Islamist party Jamaat-e-Islami has gained momentum, securing majorities in student union elections, though Rahman dismisses its impact on the general election and is actively pursuing an alliance. The National Citizens Party, a youth-led party, has struggled to gain traction. A central theme of the election is the promise of democratic reform and freedom of speech, a key demand of those who led the 2024 uprising. Rahman has pledged to abolish restrictions on media coverage, previously enforced under the Awami League government. The interim government, led by Nobel laureate Prof. Muhammad Yunus, is attempting to build consensus on reforms, but progress is slow. The election represents a critical juncture for Bangladesh, with fundamental freedoms becoming a central test for any future government. The relationship with India remains a delicate issue, and the outcome of the election will significantly shape Bangladesh's political landscape. Australia-Papua New Guinea Security Pact deepens regional counterbalance. Australia and Papua New Guinea have formalized a significant defense agreement designed to counter China's growing influence in the Pacific region. The pact grants Australia access to PNG's military facilities and up to 10,000 PNG personnel, who will be able to serve within the Australian military and potentially become Australian citizens. This move represents a strategic effort by Western nations to counteract China's recent security agreements, most notably the 2022 deal with the Solomon Islands. The agreement is rooted in a long-standing alliance between the two countries, solidified by a shared desire to maintain stability and prosperity within the Pacific. Prime Minister James Marap emphasized that the deal was not driven by geopolitical considerations, highlighting PNG's transparency in its relationship with China. He affirmed that Australia is PNG's preferred security partner. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese echoed this sentiment, emphasizing the alliance's foundation in generations of mutual trust and its commitment to a peaceful, stable, and prosperous Pacific. The agreement comes in response to China's expansion of its security footprint across the Pacific. The 2022 deal with the Solomon Islands, including the presence of Chinese police officers, and subsequent agreements with other nations, have prompted Australia to bolster its own regional security posture. Australia has already invested heavily in strengthening security ties with other Pacific nations, including a $190 million investment in the Solomon Islands police force and the establishment of a police training center. Furthermore, Australia recently signed a $328 million security and business deal with Vanuatu, involving the construction of data centers and assistance with climate change mitigation. This latest pact with PNG underscores Australia's dedication to maintaining a balanced security landscape within the Pacific, effectively challenging China's rising influence and safeguarding regional stability. Claudia Sheinbaum's popularity, a year of success and challenges. Claudia Sheinbaum, Mexico's first female president, maintains remarkably high approval ratings, hovering around 70%, a significant contrast to Donald Trump's declining approval. Her success stems from several key factors, including expanded social support programs for vulnerable populations, seniors, students, single mothers, and women, echoing the legacy of her predecessor, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. This focus on social welfare, framed as for the good of all, first the poor, has been a cornerstone of her popularity. Sheinbaum's measured approach to the Trump administration has also been crucial. Maintaining a cool head in dealing with the U.S. president, she's navigated a delicate balance of cooperation on security and migration while steadfastly defending Mexican sovereignty, a stance highlighted during a notable speech. This approach has bolstered her international standing and aided in tackling long-standing security issues. Remarkably, crime rates have fallen sharply in Mexico during Sheinbaum's first year, with intentional homicides down from 3101 to 2399 or 917 within the first 11 months. However, progress is uneven, particularly in the northwestern state of Sinaloa, where homicides increased dramatically following the arrest of drug trafficker Ismael El Mayo Zambada, triggering cartel infighting. Approximately 63.2% of Mexicans still report feeling unsafe in their cities, with security issues remaining the country's top concern. Sheinbaum's administration has also actively combated corruption, notably targeting fuel theft, fiscalogical, a significant revenue stream for criminal organizations. Recent arrests involving Marines, former customs officials, and businessmen have garnered support, although some experts view the impact as limited. Looking ahead, Mexico's co-hosting of the 2026 FIFA World Cup presents both an opportunity and a challenge. The event, involving Mexico, the United States, and Canada, is expected to attract tourists and investment, but requires significant infrastructure preparation, particularly in Mexico City, Guadalajara, and Monterrey. Despite some concerns regarding capacity and potential disruptions, Sheinbaum views the World Cup as a showcase for Mexico, and her ability to successfully manage the event will likely further enhance her popularity, given her established diplomatic skills. UK political and economic landscape, a summary of key developments. The UK political and economic landscape is currently dominated by several significant developments, including proposed police powers to ban protests, concerns over a Chinese spying case involving Sir Keir Starmer, and ongoing efforts to address the ongoing conflict in Gaza. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood's proposal for expanded police powers to prohibit demonstrations stems from the refusal of pro-Palestinian organizers to postpone rallies following a synagogue attack in Manchester, sparking alarm among civil liberty groups and concern from Labour MPs. Simultaneously, the Conservatives are demanding an explanation from Labour regarding the collapse of a Chinese spying case, alleging potential influence from Beijing during the trial. Downing Street maintains the decision to drop charges was solely the responsibility of the Crown Prosecution Service. The conflict in Gaza remains a central focus, with Western and Arab leaders urging a ceasefire and Egypt hosting crunch talks. Optimism regarding a potential agreement is growing, although families of hostages held in Gaza express urgency. Reform UK is preparing to raise council tax in Kent as part of a cost-cutting drive, struggling to find significant savings. The party's cabinet member for adult social care highlighted severely strained services. Financial markets are experiencing heightened fear of missing out, FOMO regarding gold, driving a record-breaking surge in its price. Chancellor Rachel Reeves is exploring options to raise taxes on bank profits, aiming to generate $2 billion. The government has yet to confirm or deny the implementation of this tax. Labour Shadow Chancellor Sir Mel Stride plans to announce a $47 billion savings drive, including cuts to the welfare bill, during the Conservative Party conference. The Daily Express reports that Stride will emphasize the need to avoid spending money it doesn't have. The ongoing situation in Gaza, coupled with these domestic political and economic challenges, paints a picture of a complex and rapidly evolving UK. Trump's shutdown intensifies as negotiations remain stalled. The United States government remains in a partial shutdown as political divisions deepen, with Donald Trump and congressional leaders failing to reach a resolution despite mounting concerns about the economic and social impact of the impasse. The core of the conflict centers on funding for the government, particularly the expiration of Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies, alongside Republican demands for policy concessions. Donald Trump has escalated the situation by proposing to lay off federal employees during the shutdown, a move widely condemned as evil by Congressman Ruben Gallego. This strategy aims to pressure Democratic lawmakers into compromising on funding levels. The Republican stance prioritizes completing government funding and appropriations before addressing the ACA subsidies, a position that Democrats view as a deliberate tactic to inflict harm on millions of Americans. Negotiations within Congress are stalled, with Senate Majority Leader John Thune dismissing the Democrats' demands as non-starter and not realistic. Republican leaders, including House Speaker Mike Johnson, have largely resisted engaging in substantive discussions, prioritizing the House's passage of its government funding bill. The Senate's failure to advance a similar bill underscores the deep partisan divisions. Key figures involved include Donald Trump, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, House Speaker Mike Johnson, and Congressman Ruben Gallego. The CBS YouGov poll reveals that over a third of Americans blame Trump and congressional Republicans for the shutdown, while a plurality believes both sides' positions are not worth halting government funding. The situation is further complicated by the potential for further permanent cuts to the federal workforce, a tactic proposed by Trump officials. The impasse demonstrates a lack of willingness from both sides to concede ground, raising serious questions about the duration of the shutdown and the potential consequences for the American economy and the well-being of its citizens. The focus remains on securing a resolution before millions of Americans face disruptions in government services and increased financial strain. Federal judge blocks Trump's National Guard deployments to Portland and Chicago. President Donald Trump's attempts to deploy National Guard troops to Portland, Oregon, and Chicago, Illinois, have been blocked by federal judges, escalating legal battles over the administration's authority to utilize military resources for domestic law enforcement. Judge Karen Immergut initially halted the deployment of California National Guard troops to Portland, following a Sunday hearing where she questioned the administration's justification, emphasizing the lack of evidence of significant unrest necessitating federal intervention. The judge's ruling centered on the argument that the deployment circumvented previous orders preventing the mobilization of Oregon's National Guard, potentially violating state sovereignty and exacerbating tensions. Subsequently, Trump ordered the deployment of hundreds of Texas National Guard members to Illinois and Oregon, prompting Governor J.B. Pritzker to denounce the move as Trump's invasion and Governor Tina Kotek to express concern over the lack of communication regarding the specific mission. Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield praised Immergut's ruling, asserting the administration's attempts to use different state guard units to bypass court orders. The legal challenges stem from concerns that the administration is exceeding its constitutional authority and inappropriately blending civil and military powers. Judge Immergut highlighted the distinction between a state voluntarily providing guardsmen and the federalization of a state's National Guard, warning against blurring these lines. A similar ruling in California, where the administration's deployment of National Guard troops to suppress protests against ICE actions was deemed illegal, underscores the legal vulnerabilities of the administration's strategy. The administration, through Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, defended the deployments, arguing for a strong federal government and the supremacy clause of the Constitution. However, the judges remained skeptical, emphasizing the importance of respecting state authority and the potential for misusing federal power. The ongoing legal battles and subsequent deployments reflect a significant conflict over the appropriate role of the military in domestic law enforcement and raise serious questions about the limits of presidential authority. The administration has appealed the California ruling, suggesting a continued commitment to challenging the legal obstacles to its strategy. Trump authorizes National Guard deployment to Chicago. President Donald Trump has authorized the deployment of 300 National Guard troops to Chicago in response to escalating crime and protests, particularly those involving immigration enforcement. This action followed a confrontation between immigration authorities and protesters, culminating in an armed woman being shot after attempting to ram law enforcement vehicles with her car. The incident highlighted rising tensions within the city, largely driven by demonstrations against ICE operations. A Department of Homeland Security statement confirmed that the woman was armed with a semi-automatic weapon and was subsequently transported to a local hospital for treatment. The details of her injuries remain unclear. The deployment has been met with strong opposition from Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and other local leaders who view it as an unwarranted intrusion of federal power and a manufactured crisis. Judge Karen Immergut in Portland, Oregon, had previously blocked a similar deployment, citing constitutional violations and concerns about infringing upon state sovereignty. Immergut argued that the administration's justifications were detached from reality and risked blurring the lines between civil and military authority. The situation in Chicago has been characterized by ongoing protests related to immigration enforcement, frequently occurring outside ICE facilities. White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson defended the deployment, asserting that President Trump would not ignore lawlessness within American cities. The deployment mirrors previous controversial deployments of National Guard troops in cities like Washington, Los Angeles, Memphis, and Portland, each raising significant legal and constitutional questions. These deployments typically challenge the established protocol of state governors authorizing National Guard involvement and invoke century-old laws restricting the federal government's use of the military for domestic unrest. The Portland deployment was similarly blocked, underscoring the legal challenges associated with this strategy. The situation remains fluid, with the possibility of further legal challenges anticipated as the deployment unfolds.